Greetings. Today we're going to work on an aging. We're going to start right here. These are the directions. We have Wig Creations Company supplies wigs and hair care products to beauty salons throughout Texas and the Southwest. The accounts receivable clerk for Wig Creations prepared the following partially completed aging and receivable schedule as of the end of business on December 31st, whatever year. Okay, and that picture of what has been done is not entirely here, but I will slide over here and show you the subtotals of that aging. Before we get to the rest of it, know that $875,000 in accounts receivable has been aged, and it is currently in these categories. $415,000 is not overdue at all. You can see $210,000 is in this category, all the way up to here, over 120 days. You have $65,000 in our accounts receivable are that overdue already. Okay, so that's what's already been done. Come back over here. It says these accounts were unintentionally omitted. Okay, so we've got to add them. The first thing we have to do is determine the number of days past due for each of these accounts. They give us the due date. We're going to assume that today is December 31st. Okay. And then we're going to complete the aging by adding this information. You can see over here, I have went ahead and added these clients. You can see Arcade, Creative, Excel, First, Golden, whatever. I've just went ahead and typed them in here, and I have taken the balance that they gave us, and I have put the balance here. But we've got to take each one of these numbers and put it in the appropriate category based on how past due they already are. Okay, so I have set up over here an area for us to calculate the number of days past due. You can see this is just a repetition of that information from the other page. Okay, now Arcade said that it was due on August 17th. So I have an area here. What we're going to do to figure out how many days past due these all are is we take whatever month that it is due in. August, for example, here, August had 31 days. 31 minus 17. At the end of August, it was already 14 days past due, okay? Then we just add in the number of days in each month. September has 30, and then October is 31, November is 30, December is 31, and we add all those up. At the end of the year, we can see that Arcade was 136 days past due. Now, half the battle for some of you may be knowing how many days there are in a month. So, feel free to look at a calendar or whatever you need when you're doing this. Okay, let's move on to Creative. Creative, it says, was due on the 30th of October. There were 31 days in October, 31 minus 30. It was 1 day past due at the end of October. November has 30 days, December has 31. Okay, we're going to add them all up. Creative is 62 days past due. Let's move to Excel. Excel was due July 3rd. So July has 31 days. We subtract 3, because that was the due date, from 31. At the end of July, it was already 28 days past due. Now we just drop in the number of days in each of these months. Add them up. It's 181 days past due. Okay. The next one is First Class Hair. It was due on September 8th. Move over here. 30 days in September, and we subtract 8. It was 22 days past due in September. Add 31, 30, and 31. It's 114 days past due. Golden was due on the 23rd of November. Okay, 30 days in November minus 23. It was 7 days past due at the end of November. There are 31 days in December. Altogether, it is 38 days past due. Oh, that hair. Okay, it was due on the 29th of November. There are 30 days in November, so at the end of November, it was 1 day past due. There are 31 days in December, 32 days past due altogether. One Stop was due on December 7th. Okay, so there are 31 days in December. We subtract the 7. It is 24 days overdue at the end of December. Visions, let's see what we had for Visions down here. Vision Hair and Nail, it is due January 11th, which means it is not past due. We finally have a customer not past due. So let's just go over here and put a 0 in that. And put it as text. There we go, 0. So now we know how many days past due each of those are. And I'm going to stop the recording just for a second to put those numbers all on the next page so we don't have to keep flipping back and forth, and I'll be right back. Okay, I've transferred all the numbers over. I just put them next to the name right near here. So Arcade is 136 days past due, Creative 62, etc. Okay, so all we're going to do now is we're going to take the amount, and I think you have to go ahead and enter this into Cengage from this information over here. I've just already put it in here. The $10,000 for Arcade, how past due is it? It is 136 days past due. So we repeat that 10,000 over here in the over 120 category. Creative is 62 days past due. That falls into 61 to 90. So we repeat the 8,500 here. Excel is 181. So that is going to go in this aging category. First is 114. First Class Hair Care's past due amount will go here. The Golden Images is 38 days past due, so that will go here. And Oh That Hair, that's my favorite. It is 32 days past due. It's going to stay in the same aging category. One Stop Hair Designs is 24 days past due, so that 4,000 will be repeated here. And Visions is not past due at all. We appreciate that. So it is going to go here. We have put each one into the appropriate aging category. Now we're going to figure out the total for each aging category. And you've got to remember to pick up this amount right here, okay? So we want to know what is the sum of everything from the subtotal down. I'm going to use the sum feature since I have Excel. I'm using it here. So all this together adds up to that. I'm going to quickly use my formula. Okay, so all of these have been added up for us. You can see all the way over here, 65,000 plus 10,000 plus 7,500 is 82.5. So I have the amount. Oh, and just to prove something to you, this, if we add all of these up together, okay, that should be the same as our accounts receivable, and it is. Okay, now we have the aging done. We've done number one, determine the number of days past due for each of the preceding accounts. We did that on the other tab. We completed the aging of receivables schedule by adding the omitted accounts to the bottom of the schedule and updating the totals. Now it says estimate the allowance for doubtful accounts based on the aging of receivables schedule. Okay, so I'm going to scroll up here and we'll just leave our subtotals in place. This is part of the information that we need to complete this. It tells us what % we expect to become uncollectible for each aging category. Of everything that is not past due, we still expect 1% of that to become uncollectible. So I'm going to put 1% in there. The 1 to 30 is 4%. We have 16% in the next category, 25%, 40%, and 80%. Okay, that's how much we expect to become uncollectible in each aging category. And that makes sense that they should get larger as they are more past due. This is the over 120 days past due. We don't think we're going to see 80% of that amount. Okay. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to multiply. If 1% of this is going to become uncollectible, then that means we don't expect to get $4,240 of that amount. Ignore this number here until we're done, okay? And we'll do the same thing. We're going to multiply each percent times the number above it. 4% times that's this, 16% times that is this, etc. Now I did have this, go ahead and sum up this number. Right here, if we were to take all of these numbers right here, that is the amount in total that we expect to not collect. Okay? So that should be the balance in our aging account. Excuse me. I should say that should be the balance in our allowance for doubtful accounts when we are done with our adjusting entry. Okay, so come back over here to the instructions. Trying to get them in view. Okay. assume the allowance for doubtful accounts for Wood Creations has a credit balance of 7375, and I have set that up right here. Before adjustment, journalize the adjustment for uncollectible accounts. Okay, so let's come back over here, ignore this down here. We said this needs to be the balance in our allowance account. We want that to be the answer. It has to be a credit balance. That should be the answer. So if we want this to be our ending balance and we already have $7,375 in the account, then that's going to create the need for a subtraction to get the difference. Okay, so how do we get from this number to this number? We take $123,235 and we subtract $73,75. We need to add $115,860 to the allowance account to make this down here true. Okay, so what does that look like? We would debit bad debt expense, and we would credit allowance for doubtful accounts. I'm just abbreviating DA. Okay, and it's going to be $115,860. Okay, so that is what number 4 would look like. It says journalize the adjustment for the uncollectible accounts. This is the journal entry for number 4. Now, let's assume, this is not part of the problem, but let's assume one other thing. I want you to see what would happen if it had a debit balance before this started. If instead of saying we had a credit balance of $73.75, it said we had a debit balance of $5,000, how would we do that? Okay, well, we still want our answer to be the same. Okay, you've got to force your answer to be this. You got to force the balance, I should say, to be this number. So in this case, the allowance account is in a negative situation, and you would actually have to add these two together to get the amount for your adjusting entry. So if you were doing it with the $5,000 debit balance, then your entry would instead, why didn't it do it? Okay, be the $128,235. Okay, now this is not part of your problem. I just want you to see what would happen if you had a debit balance here to begin with. Okay, now almost done. Over here, number 5, assuming that the adjusting entry in number 4 was omitted. We didn't do this right here is what they're saying. How would this omission affect the balance sheet and the income statement? Okay, if you did not do this, what is the effect? Well, if you wouldn't be recognizing this expense, so your expenses would be too low. If your expenses are too low, your net income is too high. If your net income is too high, that makes your capital and equity on your balance sheet too high. Okay, and as we said, it would already make your income statement show an income that is too high. So equity would be too high, and the net income on your income statement would also be too high. And if we did not do this, again, the allowance would be too small because we would not have increased the allowance by this amount. And if the allowance were too small, that would make your net realizable value of your assets too high. So your assets would also be too high. Hope that helps. Let me know if you need some more help. Have a good day.